Welcome in, Kuma Crew. It's once again your favourite friendly despair bear, Annakuma, and today we're back to fully review one of our demo review series games. Yes, today we're looking at Common Color's gothic comedy adventure game, Prim. Looking back on the demo review, I was super excited for this one, guys. I genuinely thought this was going to be the game of the year for me. I have said it, the game developer said it at the end of the demo, everyone else has said it a million times, but I'll say it once more for you. This game was bringing the art style of Tim Burton, the gameplay of Curse of Monkey Island, the wit of Terry Pratchett, and the setting of Greek mythology to life in a game that I can only imagine was made specifically for me. It couldn't be more perfect if it tried. My main worry, as always though, was the story not living up to the hype, but it couldn't possibly go wrong, right? Right! Now I'll instantly save this. The demo story and the main story are different. Honestly, it isn't a huge problem and only a small difference, but it feels like the story might have gotten changed at some point, which might possibly explain a lot of what I'm about to say. So let us start our non-spoilery brief overview first. And that is a mouthful. That is hard for a bear to say. I guess we'll look at the difference though. Prim's demo offered us a look at a story about the daughter of death who wanted to escape her overprotective father's grasps so that she could go into the world of the living and find a boy that had been calling out to her in her dreams. When we get to the actual full release, Prim is still the teenage daughter of death, but she doesn't know this until after her mother dies around her 16th birthday. There is a brief period between her mother passing and death coming to get her, where she is living with her friend Tristan, but then she is cruelly whisked away from her life and into the world of her father. Prim is still an unruly teenager, and her plan still is to get to the land of the living, to find a boy, just this time she knows the boy, it's Tristan, and instead of just being done with her dad being overprotective, she feels like he abducted her and ruined her life, which is understandable. Prim honestly isn't a huge game. I finished it in 8 hours, which I guess does compare with the last game, An English Haunting, but whilst that game flowed so well and kept me wanting more, there was a lot of bloat to Prim, like a lot. I'm getting a little ahead of myself though, so let's talk about characters. Prim has some really fun characters you can interact with. We'll meet our aunt, who is a bit of an airhead, Persephone, who is in a war with my favourite character, Hank, who doesn't want the garden to be brought back to life, so has hung himself from a tree that he talks to because, yes, I love him. We also get the Fates, who all inhabit one body, and Echo, who is trying to date one of the said Fates. There aren't too many more characters, but they are all interesting to get to know. Each of the characters are also voice acted, and most have very simple and understandable motivations. So let's have a look at Echo, for example. Echo is in love with Lykesis, one of the three Fates. Sadly, her sisters Clotho and Atropos aren't impressed with him. We're introduced to this forbidden love in a very cute and simple way, and then come up with a plan to help Echo win over the two Fates in the name of love. This actually ends up being one of the best puzzles, as you have to find context clues to learn more about the sisters. They won't tell you much about themselves, so you have to figure it out by going around their home and learning who they are through their belongings and the many notes they leave to each other. I thought it was a really interesting way to do the puzzle, and ends with a really fun little song that you have to help Echo complete to win them over.
Atropos! And if you feel like you could drown, Clotho! You suffer from monotony.
Do not forget to sing for Lykesis, Siren.
An allergy, I wonder which.
So, let me talk about the biggest strength that Prim has, and that is the puzzles, which is good because it is an adventure game and puzzles are half the battle. Prim has so much variety in its puzzles. It has many inventory-based puzzles like you would expect from an adventure game, but it also gives you the tools to do so much more with it. We have the Spider Pal, you even get to name him. He has his own little adventures and his own little chessboard type mini-game to play. He can also see into people's memories, which gives Prim the ability to figure out what to do next. Prim also has her own minigame. It is the Casket Ball card game. I did love this to a point, Both minigames are needed for the main story, and whilst you don't have to super grind out Casket Ball, you do have to grind a little bit to make the inevitable battle with death much easier than this idiot bear made it. I honestly was waiting for more characters to show up, and did not think that the very few that we had met to that point would have so many cards, but you basically have to win each and every card from each person's deck. This is where the bloating comes from. Now, anyone who knows me knows I'm a sucker for card games. When I played through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I spent most of the streams I streamed it playing Queen's Blood. Hell, even in Final Fantasy XIV, I spent a lot of the time playing Triple Triad around the map. Casket Ball is fine. It's more RNG based, being more akin to Top Trumps, which makes it a little less fun to grind out. At least with things like Queen's Blood, there's a degree of skill you need to master, whilst with Casket Ball, if the cards fall poorly, then there isn't much you can do. I do feel the beginning and end animations of Casket Ball are too long and non-skippable, and I'm not joking that I think it could add a good hour or more to your gameplay just grinding it out. The fight against death needs to happen, and he's the top player in the underworld, so you'll have to get a few cards to bolster your deck, or just pray to RNGs as to help like I did. Even as a card game fan, I got fatigued going through it. It doesn't take away from the rest of the game though, it just slows it down a little at times. The same can be said with the Game of Gnomes game. The difference is the Game of Gnomes game is more skill based, you just have to learn the moves, and you can also make it so much easier for yourself as well. I won't say how, but it'll be obvious in game. I also love that you get to play as Tristan for one segment, and he has a really interesting little puzzle with his family's donkey to get it to come out of the bushes. It was easy enough, even though it was a colour puzzle done in grayscale. Again, you can't go wrong with the amount of variety you get. Sadly, it adds very much to the empty feel of the game though. It feels like there are lots of good ideas, but at some point a second act got cut out of the game, and everything ends up being the beginning of a good idea and then nothing else comes from it. This goes for the story as well. Prim feels like it had a good heart to it, but some corners got cut, and the story just ended up feeling emotionally empty for me. There is a lot of extremely fake conflict with Prim and Death. The fact that Prim's mother never mentioned her father is fair enough. Who can tell a kid that they're banging Death and got pregnant, and you are the offspring of that? But we never personally get to see Death try to explain this to Prim. He shows up, she faints, and suddenly we're a few weeks down the line, where Death has had to dig a pit under Prim's window to stop her trying to escape. Then we bring in our aunt, who acts like any kind of parenting that Death does is wrong, and we're painted a picture of an overbearing father who doesn't care. For me, it doesn't actually feel like it plays out this way though, and I feel like it could be a hangover from the original plot. Death was meant to be overbearing, and everyone calling him out on that would have been fine if the story ran the same as the demo story. Even with the change, Prim feeling like she's been kidnapped is a valid point, but you need to give us more context to how Death went about explaining all this to her before just telling us he's in the wrong. There's a lot of telling in this story and not enough showing, which stops it actually feeling well done. None of this ruined the game, but it all adds to this feeling that the game just is incomplete. Again, even the ending just felt rushed to a finale. No one other than the Fates and Echo get any kind of conclusion. We just kind of leave Hank and Persephone here arguing for all eternity, and whilst we have a nice emotional moment with our dad at the end, it just felt like we didn't work to get to it. I think the map is a good visual aid for this. Look how wonderful this map looks. I was so excited to explore so much of it. This little bit on the left where all the starting areas are, these are the only places you'll ever go to. And whilst I guess technically you do go and explore a little more, the map doesn't change, and you don't really see much more of the rest of it. Now, does this make it bad? No. But it does make it feel like there's all this space for adventure, but at some point the adventure was cancelled and we were kind of locked into this area here. So I guess you've noticed my big complaint. I've said it a couple times. Prim feels like it lost a big chunk of its personality. It feels like the heart and soul of the story was ripped out, and what we see now is the bare bones and muscle of what could have been an epic story. Now, I don't know if that is how it went down, or if this was always the vision, but it ended up feeling flat. When I ended the game, I felt like, was that it? Instead of actually feeling the emotions the game wanted of me. I can't deny that it's a fantastic game though. As I've said, the gameplay is solid and varied. I enjoyed pretty much all of the puzzles and thought they got the spirit of Monkey Island down really well. I spent about 10 minutes trying to figure out what to do with this post. I came up with a bunch of different ideas and the final answer was just, I missed a hotspot to kick it, so I kicked it. If you're looking for a good solid point and click experience, you can't go wrong with this game. When it comes to the art style, it nailed it 10 times over. I love the detail in most of the areas you go to. I love the look of the characters and the vibe. I would have liked the Land of the Living to have contrasted the Land of the Dead and been coloured, but I get that they went hard with the style and that's fine too. Visually, it is stunning and a lot of work went into making it look special. Then you have the writing. And I'll be honest, whilst I felt the story was rushed and lacked emotional connection, and the characters never really went anywhere, it was still a very fun story to play. I really loved Prim as a character. I felt it was very understandable to see her anger and upset at being torn away from her life and being told she can never return. She was a witty character and had some fun little moments that reminded you that she's a child still, technically. Her interactions with others was fun, and she reacted really well to what happened to her most of the time. You get a mini boss fight type thing later in the game, and I thought it was designed really well, and the conversations she had with Medusa were fantastic. Plus, it really did have that wit and charm of Terry Pratchett. You see this most in the characters, especially someone like Hank, the grumpy Welsh skeleton who talks to his tree friend. He feels like he'd give Red Shoe a run for his money on Rights for the Dead. Maybe my main problem is the hype I gave it myself. I didn't hate the game, but I did come away disappointed. I felt empty by the end of it. It kept me hooked, but I felt I was revving up for something great. Then the end puzzle kind of just happened, and we were at the credit scene. And if I could compare it to any other game, it would be Toonstruck, which very much did have an entire act ripped from it, and the end of the game really showed that it was missing so much more. I still love Toonstruck, it's one of my favourite games, but it is a game that, only as I got older, that I even noticed how rushed and unsatisfying the end is, but I can't deny that it feels that way anymore. Prim is 100% a game I'd recommend to just about anyone. It'll keep you busy and will be enjoyable enough. Maybe without the context of the demo, I wouldn't feel so disappointed, but it was still a top-class entry into the adventure game genre, and what it did do well. Plus, Basketball was fantastic, and whilst it did bloat the game a lot, and I mean, as I said before, a lot, I did get very into challenging people in it. With all that said though, it is time to end the video. I am kind of sad that this came out as more negative than I probably would have wanted it to. It was a fun time, but I can't deny that the overwhelming takeaway I got was the game just felt unfinished. If you would like to support me though, I would appreciate you giving this video a like, commenting on how you felt about the game. Did you feel it was missing something or bloated by card games? Or did you find it fine? And also give us a subscribe over here and a follow over at twitch.tv/Annakuma with 2 A's at the end, where I play a variety of games all year long, 5 days a week. The beginning of 2025 has been just Yakuza brain rot, so if you like big burly topless Yakuza husbandos, then I'll probably still be playing them by the time this is out. Quite literally, I have a lot to go. Next time we'll be having a quacking good time talking about Duck Detective. Until then though, thank you for watching, and bye bye.
It's Demon Diabolical by Gorillas.
How many times will I fade until you fade away? So how many times will I fade until you fade away? So this is what I'm going to be. I might be dead, but I'm burning out 1,000,000 degrees. I might be new here, I might look that pen, but watch your step or I turn you into a sad man.
Nothing.